Yeah,
But yeah,
so
Stadia.
Stadia. Which there's a lot of jokes about it sounding like a sugar substitute or something, like a stevia.
Yeah, there's
I'm not a fan of the name.
I appreciate the quality of the jokes about the name. Like it's an STD, it's a sugar substitute, it's a medication.
Yeah.
Really, just the internet kind of came out gold on that one. But we've seen that before where you had this weird fucking name like the Nintendo Wii.
Yeah.
And then eventually it becomes a household name and you don't care anymore. You forget that we were making fun of this name.
Yeah, for sure. That's usually what happens.
Yeah.
Although Stadia does seem still kind of too nerdy and like not like, like when your mom's like, hey, go play your Nintendo. Like, I don't see that adapting that same kind of just well-known phrase, but I don't know.
I can see that.
But yeah, Stadia. So it's a game streaming platform. I got some of the bullet points down.
Okay.
It's due out in 2019. No specific date. They did announce, or they did say that there's more announcements in the summer. Probably E3 is, I imagine, when they're really going to get into the nitty-gritty.
Which is a weird time to do it.
You think so? Because they're really trying to compete, with these other platforms, or why not? Especially since Sony's out, like they have more of a room to breathe. But would you foresee them skipping E3 or like somewhere? Something
I think they should skip E3. You think they can't compete with these other. Like, when these people are
in their
on
world,
their A game, like, they're lucky Reggie Fils-Aimé isn't around to just walk in and be.
Yeah. And kick some ass. I don't know, because I think they're kind of gearing this towards that as a competitor. But so in my mind, you would want to show up with those at least for the notoriety, and so people start plugging you in with these consoles. Even if you can't, like, graphics wise, processing wise, compete with them, at least you're in the namesake with all of them. You're in the ball game with them. Yeah. But maybe they just kind of have, which is the popular thing now. Maybe before E3, around E3, they just have their own event and they kind of announce stuff on their own time and not be in with all that stuff. But
it'd be cool if at that event, I think we discussed this, like, people could just log in and play it.
Ooh, interesting.
That'd be great. Do the whole thing on YouTube and, like, by the way, plug in your because you can play with whatever controller you want. By the way, plug in your Xbox controller and you can play this demo right now.
That would be the ultimate way to show, hey, this works. You can play this now. Like, even while their keynote is happening. Like, hey, just jump in. You can play it, and we'll show your little screen on our keynote, one of the thousands or whatever.
That'd be so cool.
Yeah, that'd be the mic drop. Like, that's been the biggest question mark with this is, okay, does it work? How does it look? And that's their biggest hurdle that they have to show that off. But some of the stuff they're promising, which is pretty out there, but 4K, 60 frame per second, game streaming. Right. The logistics is where it kind of, you have more questions. So the goal is eventually down the line in, I don't know, 2030, 8K and 120 frame per second ability, to stream in the future.
I just don't see that.
Right. But at the very least, so I got some of the actual breakdowns of the requirement for the internet speed. So 25 megabit per second connection for 1080, 30 for 1080p. I want to say that's 60 frames still, and then 30 megabit for 4K, 60 frames per second.
25 megabit for 1080p?
Yeah, for 1080p. So that's the baseline. But they can do and I pulled up some actual, national averages, but 25 megabit seems to be accessible by most people in the U.S.
Oh, is it?
Yeah, apparently. So it's not as bad as we thought.
Consistently, though. That's the thing. Like, that's not a consistent connection.
Right. So I'm not sure. And there's also a whole other world that I don't know much about, which is pinging, and how that introduces lag and latency. And that's a whole other ball game. So yeah, you can have your actual high-speed internet connection that stays around the whatever 25, 30 megabits. But if your pinging is off or slow, then you still can't play it. I mean, it has to go to their servers, come back to your just to press your controller in real time.
Right. Yeah.
Yeah, yikes. Although I did bring up some of their data centers. So we're kind of jumping around, but I have an image of the Google data centers because for it to work, your input on your controller, whether it's theirs or a third party, whatever, has to go to their servers, their data servers, and then come back to you, right?
Right.
So they have some, at least in the U.S., they have a bunch. They have like 11. They have one in the Dalles, Oregon, which is pretty close to us, in Washington State, which is awesome.
That's right.
But that's really it for the West Coast is the Dalles. Yeah. And then everything else is East Coast, Midwest.
I like the one South America.
Yep. So I imagine they would need to kind of beef that up. They're Google. They have the money to throw around. But for it to work, that's really the bulk of it. The power needs to be there in the data centers.
I think that's another thing too. Is like you hear a lot of gamers in like you'll hear in Africa or like South America, where just like they're so far away from these servers, just normally for multiplayer games, that it's a problem.
Gotcha.
So like, doing something that much more demanding like this is going to be. I just don't see it. I mean, you still look at the popularity of things like Redbox or things like that. People can't go discless, and I know that's going to come back in later. But people can't go discless because it's just not always possible. People can't even always do online multiplayer.
Right. Although, if we're just talking about like how they start to strategize and tackle which market first with the U.S., I feel like it's possible within the U.S. And then you can start to really expand, and it's going to get harder as you expand to different countries. But like Europe, you do have a lot of data centers there, at least for Google. You have overall pretty good high speed. So I mean, if they are focusing on the U.S. first. And in Europe, these areas with more data centers, it's doable there. It's just when you think about if they're tackling the whole world, that's an issue. There's we're pretty privileged here,
right?
But it's doable here. Yeah. Anyway, so we'll break down some of the more details. But so they announced their little controller too, which works. So it works through the Chromecast to send the through Wi-Fi to send the actual data of the controller to their data centers back. You can use a Xbox, PlayStation 4 controller,
which I love,
which is cool.
That was brilliant.
I think that has to work with through PC though, and then it sends the information back and forth. Yeah. They haven't announced any like price points, any details on that, because you're gonna have to pay some kind of subscription, I imagine, or it's per game. I don't know.
It has to be subscription based.
You think?
There's they can't be running those centers without it.
How much do you think would be a fair price per month? And it would be unlimited, I imagine. So every game that drops, you'd be able to play it.
Maybe. I don't know. I would pay. I just canceled my my Origin subscription, and that was like $15 a month. So I'd probably pay $15 a month. Now, is that a fair price for the amount of like hardware and stuff they're throwing behind us?
Right.
Probably not.
Right.
That's what I'd pay, but probably.
What did
not
Origin
a fair
get
price.
you? Huh? What did the Origin subscription get you?
I did it so I could start playing Anthem without paying the full $60.
Right. Okay.
And I'm really glad because now I only paid $30 because I let it refresh once.
Yeah.
Now I never had to feel bad about not playing that game again.
Yeah. I'll catch it when it's on sale, but yeah, I feel the same way.
I wouldn't even.
Really?
Yeah. Like I feel like. Yeah, like I know, like even with like I know we've been talking about buying Fallout 76, and I still feel like even if that game's bad, we'll still have like a decently fun Fallout time.
Because I love that world and I know that world. Yeah.
Right. Yeah, and I hear it's not. I mean, if it weren't for the bugs, it wouldn't be the worst game of all time.
With Fallout.
Yeah, but
they do have it's like the Appalachia expansion. Like they have these expansions rolling out, so it's all free stuff. I imagine that's gonna be pretty cool.
I'd check it out. But Anthem is just. Like, it feels like the UI makes no sense the way it's organized. I can't find shit. Like, the loading times, even if you don't count the fact that they shorten the loading times, there's still, like, many loading times that happen. And it's like, well, that's my immersion.
Yeah.
My immersion.
Where you're just on your phone and,
Yeah.
But you still don't want to have to jump out to do that.
Yeah. And it's like the gameplay's not even worth it. So
I see. That's a bummer. Yeah, for sure.
In my opinion.
We'll kind of finish up Stadia. They did have Doom Eternal show up. They had who's he? What's it from? id Software. He's really well known. Head at the
Gabe
studio.
Newell.
Yeah, sure. He showed up, but so which is nuts to me that they wouldn't have this. They wouldn't partner so publicly with id to show off their tech to prove that it can happen. They can do 60 frames per second, 4K streaming. So I don't think they would make that connection if it wasn't possible, or at least on id side too. They wouldn't throw their chips in there and say like, "Hey, we can do this."
I mean, that has to be because Doom's such a fast game,
right?
So I think that was brilliant. Yeah. It was very glitchy though, from what they showed, which was like this was just a background. Like, why is this glitching out? And not in like 1080p resolution even. It was super blurry.
Yeah. So they have to. Do you foresee them doing another beta test beforehand, or was it just they got all the information they needed out of the Assassin's Creed one they did?
I don't know.
I feel like it wouldn't hurt, but I don't know what else can be learned from another beta, but.
I could see them beta testing, so they showed like with YouTube where you could play on YouTube and the people could join in on YouTube, which I think is a great idea.
And you let like streamers start that, and that just helps their channels too. Like just let them break it and figure it out.
That'd be really fun. I don't know how you monetize like that. Like, does everyone that's playing have to buy a copy of, NBA Jam or whatever? Or
Interesting.
I
guess,
imagine so.
Well, I guess it'd make more sense to allow anyone to watch the stream, but if you want to jump in, you have to be a Stadia subscription, pay that fee. But then that'd be good advertising. It's like, because you could jump in with a click of button if you have the subscription, and you can watch it in the meantime.
Yeah, but and I don't know, will they support outside of YouTube? Like, is Twitch not gonna get it?
Right,
like,
right. And that's what I didn't pull any articles about that, but there's kind of talk about, does this create some kind of, there's always already been a war and like just these competing companies with Twitch and YouTube, but now this kind of furthers that divide because they're a game service now and not just for streaming. And Twitch doesn't have anything like that, right? They have like the Twitch Plays kind of stuff,
which is way different. And then like the other thing on top of that is like, you can't really, like, let's say you're a partnered streamer, you can't, you've signed the contract. You can't just stream it on YouTube and also just be streaming that to Twitch, because in the contract it says you can't be. It has to be so. I don't know if you're allowed to stream on YouTube at all.
Gotcha.
But you can't, like,
it's almost like an exclusivity deal or something.
Yeah, there's an exclusivity. Like, when you upload something to YouTube, it has to be so long since you did it on Twitch. Like, there's a fair amount of rules to it. So you can't just, be doing both at the same time with that. Which is kind of, not that you'd have the bandwidth to do both at the same time anyway.
Yeah, but I think this might kind of further that divide with them kind of picking sides and changing their model. But yeah, I mean, it's a lot of potential. I'm really stoked. I'm really interested. They did announce a first-party studio. They haven't announced a name or whatever, but they are investing money to develop their own games. They're getting third-party support. I think that was the whole push at GDC, was like, hey, developers, do you want in on this?
Yep.
Hit us up.
Absolutely.
Yep. So, I mean, I did pull up an article that so Phil Harrison is the guy who was the head guy
I thought he died. I felt really bad when I saw him on stage. I'm like, oh.
I thought you were dead.
I thought it.
Is there another kind of company head that maybe died that you're thinking of?
It's possible. It's honestly possible.
Interesting. So they did kind of break down the nitty gritty, where they are sticking with that. They're just requiring 25 megabits, and then it's 30 megabits for that higher end experience. They broke down the Chromecast. So I'm pulling up Kotaku's article by Maddie Myers, where they interview. Actually, this is from their Split Screen podcast with Jason Schreier, but they interview Phil Harrison and they talk about just some of the details. They couldn't get any definite, like, what will it cost, and there's just more info in the summer. But so one thing I found interesting was Jason Schreier kind of grills Phil Harrison. So he asks, is this just another ambitious Google project that will disappear in a few years like Google Plus?
Oh.
And which is because they have other things that they've tried, like there's Google Glass, there's at least 3 or 4. Right, and they just or even fiber, I think, which would play into this, because they're paying money to rebuild these infrastructures with high-speed internet. And they kind of, that fell through.
Well, it cost too much money.
Right.
I imagine. Well, we tried it, not worth.
Yeah. And imagine as, Triple G or whatever, the like super fast wireless internet goes, that might take that over. But so I mean, so he responds, I understand the concern, but I think that all you have to do is look at the level of investment that we've made to continue to make in Stadia. So they are putting everything behind this. They had their head of Google, I forget his name, but he started the keynote and admitted that I'm not a gamer, but we're putting all our money behind this. I forget the gentleman's name, but
I appreciate being honest.
Right. But yeah, I mean, more questions, but a lot of potential there. I'm on board. I'm not like a super naysayer on it. Like, I'm stoked.
Yeah.
But I understand it may not work as well as they planned.
Right.
I get that.
Absolutely.
So that was a big one. That kind of like shook everything up. And I wonder if we'll see reactions from other, the big competitors like Sony, like Microsoft, to see if they already have their own streaming stuff in the wing, but will they go hard on that with this next couple of years?
I think it's kind of funny that Apple had to follow it up with their launch of their thing.
Yeah, and I feel like their announcement was a bit more lame compared to that, but but it is there. Yeah.
You're not walking out there going, this thing has more teraflops than an Xbox One X and a PS4 Pro combined.
Right.
Like, oh.
Which, when they start comparing teraflops, I tune out because I don't know what that means. I don't know what that is. I can't understand. I understand it's more teraflops, but what does it actually do?
I mean, it does more. It
Okay.
allows you to do. I mean, you think about it now. I really don't know much about hardware at all, but I mean, you just think about it, that's that many more polygons you can do per second, or you can have your AI do more checks per second, which could allow you to do smarter AI, or you can have a good example that I think we don't have enough anymore is like more advanced physics. And I think they even at one point said like we have like they were flying through this like fully destructible city, which in the short clip I saw they didn't destroy any of it.
Oh, with the Stadia.
Yeah, and I was like, what was? I mean, I hope in the actual full length clip of that they destroyed some of that city, because otherwise that's just like, yeah.